Warm welcome to Turning Point Scotland's Housing First 10th anniversary conference. I don't know about you, but this is not the experience that we had hoped would happen for the 10th anniversary conference. We rather hoped we would be able to meet face to face. But nonetheless, there was a time that we actually thought this wasn't going to happen at all because of the pandemic, and we are here this morning. So thank you very much for your interest. Thank you very much for coming along. And actually, the numbers are looking fantastic. We've got just shy of 300 delegates and representation from across 9 countries. So I think that's truly impressive. This is the first time I've ever presented in this kind of format, in this kind of conference. And for many of you, it may be the first time that you have actually been part of a conference in cyberspace. Being the only person in the room, it feels a little bit odd to what we're perhaps more familiar with. That said, there's a lot of planning gone in to try and make today as interactive as possible, as immersive as possible, and to really get some conversations going so that as we share some of the experiences that we have managed to kind of build over those 10 years, we can use that to generate some really exciting and important conversations about how we're going to do things over the next 10 years. So fingers crossed, the technology will hold up and everybody will enjoy what is a really vibrant programme. I'd like to start, if I can, by just sort of saying how proud I am to be the leader of an organisation that truly puts individuals that we support at the heart of everything we do. We believe in Turning Point that people really do matter, and we try and live that on a daily basis. But I'm equally proud to see that colleagues continue to look around them and to learn from the experiences of others, not just in this country, but actually across the world. And in fact, it was that approach that led Turning Point Scotland to be the first organisation in the UK to deliver Housing First. And over that time, we've seen Housing First evolve and turn into what was an effective approach to homelessness to become a transformational philosophy that informs and develops our work really across social care. I'm going to spend some time today revisiting the history of Housing First in Scotland. And the aim is to provide a little bit of context of where I think we are. And in order to do that, I will be sharing some of Turning Point Scotland's experiences, good and bad, the things that went well and the things that perhaps didn't go quite so well. And the idea around that, as I said, is to try and share that learning so that we can use that to shape where Housing First is going from here. So to begin, our journey started actually in the years preceding 2010 with a late colleague, Ian Irvine, who visited America. He was actually on holiday when that happened, but such was his commitment. He dedicated some of his holiday time to better understanding what the experience of Housing First had been across the water. His commitment and tenacity was really huge, and he was determined to bring Housing First over into Scotland because he believed it was relevant and could work. He was extremely proud of what Turning Point Scotland and Housing First achieved, and proud and enthusiastic about spreading the word. TPS began accommodating numerous visits from colleagues across Europe, again, as our learning started to develop. And in fact, some of these visits are still going on today. Ian also won a prestigious Churchill Scholarship Award in 2015 for his work in homelessness and Housing First. And I think it's fair to say that we collectively owe Ian a huge debt of thanks for the success of Housing First, not just in TPS, but actually in Scotland, across the UK, and in fact, beyond the country's borders across the world as well. In 2010, we launched the Glasgow Housing First Legacy Service with funding from Turning Point Scotland ourselves, but also 2 years funding from the Big Lottery. The TPS board had listened to the case for Housing First, launched, of course, by an impassioned Ian, but they agreed that this was the type of service that really could work in Glasgow. They felt it was worth taking a chance and taking the opportunity to try and develop something that was innovative and had shown signs of success in New York. One of the most significant decisions at that time was to employ peer support practitioners, and that was the first time we'd done it in Turning Point Scotland. There is a requirement in that role, as I'm sure many of you know, that staff utilise their own lived experience with service users and become experts by experience, if you like. And it's really interesting to reflect that many of the questions that we were asking ourselves, not just about that, but about other things as well, are largely the same questions that we're actually asking 10 years on. A 3-year longitudinal study was implemented at the very beginning of the legacy service. And a final report was created that demonstrated that the project was widely heralded as a success, not just by service users, but by staff and stakeholders as well. In large part, that was because of a very supportive, very positive Housing First outcomes that were recorded, but because the staff team had successfully maintained positive relationships with and continued to support service users who were previously regarded as highly challenging or in fact even serial disengagers. In 2015, we worked closely with Renfrewshire and East Bartonshire councils to open Housing First services in both local authority areas. Both services experienced positive working relationships with each local authority's housing and homelessness teams, and this impacted positively on the outcomes that service users experienced. In 2018, an independent evaluation of the East Bartonshire service highlighted that the support that was provided through Housing First and the outcomes achieved are now highly regarded by the clear majority of professionals across teams. And many of those individuals had been, in fact, sceptical about Housing First from the outset. In 2018, we launched a video explainer which helped to try and profile Housing First and influence wider stakeholders and colleagues about its effectiveness. Since its launch, we've had some 2,000 views on YouTube, and I wanted, with your indulgence, just to show that video just now, just by way of a reminder as to what Housing First is all about. So Shona, if I could ask you to push that button and we'll see if it works.
You know the best feeling of the day when you make it home and close the door in a place you call your own. If you're homeless, you don't have that, and without that feeling of belonging, security and identity, any of us would suffer. So how do you get a home if you don't have one? Many people affected by homelessness have to prove that they can live independently before they're allowed one. Prove that they can budget, that they control their dependencies, that their behaviours won't upset anyone. Any number of things that could have made them homeless to start with and have been made worse by being homeless. And if they can't keep up with it, they start all over again. Some people have gone up and down, round and round, for years. Turning Point Scotland was one of the very first to realise there had to be a better way, and the first in the UK to invest in a new scheme. One that's about what the person needs rather than the home, and who deserves it. Because if any of us have a home, we can deal with their problems better and work through them together, faster. We run Housing First in Glasgow, Renfrewshire and East Bartonshire, bringing community and citizens where others see only a problem to fix. Housing First, Turning Point Scotland.
Okay, so the history lesson continues. Housing First began to gain really considerable traction across Scotland within the first 5 years of inception. And in 2018, funding was very gratefully received from Social Bite and from the Scottish Government to scale up Housing First. And it focused on 5 key areas in Scotland. Turning Point Scotland were and are the lead partners in the Glasgow Consortium and partners in Edinburgh and Aberdeenshire consortiums as well. Funding was also received to support this activity in Glasgow from the Merchants House of Glasgow. And again, that funding was really important to enable us to kind of move things forward and move things up. To date, the Pathfinder programme has achieved an average tenancy sustainment rate of some 83%. But one of the areas that continues to give myself and colleagues real cause for concern is the number of deaths of individuals who are receiving support in Housing First services. The Pathfinder programme across Scotland has seen 18 people losing their lives, accounting for 7% of failed tenancies. We don't have full data, but intelligence around this tells us that the majority of these are due to drug overdoses. And this is obviously a preventable occurrence and something that is highly topical in Scotland right now. Within TPS, we are committed to reducing these deaths and have taken a firm position on how to address this, including work with near-fatal overdoses, working closer together and out of silos, exploring digital support solutions and others, as well as the use of naloxone, not just for individuals, but for the families as well. I sit as the Vice Chair of the Drug Deaths Task Force, and I personally have a conviction that there is, well, frankly, the number of people dying is an unacceptable thing. And I think as a country, we must and can do much better. Let me move on now, if I can, to talk about some of the other developments, the partnerships, and in fact, some of how the learning has been shared. So on the 7th of July last year, the Housing First Academy, which is part of Turning Point Scotland, was launched by Kevin Stewart, the Housing Minister. And the Academy consists of three main areas: the Communities of Practice Hub, the Training Hub, and our Housing First Europe Hub. And collectively, this provides a platform to create connections, build relationships, share learning and learn from others in Scotland, Europe and beyond. We invite everybody here, in fact, as members of the Housing First community. If you're not already engaged, you can become engaged with that by simply signing up to the newsletter on the website. In 2016, TPS co-funded the Housing First Europe Hub, and each year we contribute €10,000 along with partners to fund the development of plans for that year, and that continues. Over the last 10 years, we've learned a significant amount about what works and what hasn't worked for us. Aspects of our approach have worked really well and been successful, others not so much. We've told our story about Housing First, and we've told people about how we're getting on. But we think that certainly as far as today's concerned, it's important to start telling a new story and start looking forwards. And to that end, again, with your indulgence, I'd like to show you another video, which is entitled Our Continued Story. So again, Shona, let's try it again.
Years already. We're only just getting started.
In years gone by, we have told our story of what Housing First was about.
And we gave you an update on how we're getting on our journey. We now want to continue these stories, but we also want to tell you a new story. We want to tell everyone a story about how people engage in the support of Housing First through the analogy of a feature house. Some individuals may need ongoing Housing First support for many years to come, including those with multiple and enduring support needs. They may continue to have problematic substance use, severe mental health issues, living in poor tenancy conditions with staff struggling to find a way to engage them in appropriate services. Support will be intense, but will vary according to constantly changing circumstances.
Meanwhile, others might have similar challenges, but may be showing signs of wanting to be more independent, possibly beginning to engage with agencies, thinking about how to address the challenges they are facing and trying to achieve their goals. Their support needs become more predictable.
And then there are those with challenges but who are starting to get on with their life. It may mean resolving some of their issues or learning how to live with them. We continue to support and encourage people to maintain their progress. Finally, we have those who have made good progress in their lives, who might be in recovery or stable in their alcohol or other drug use, managing their mental health and engaging with services. They might not need active support, but will still want to know we are there if they need us for a period of time.
The key point is that people won't always have a fixed category of support needs, and when these change, we will respond while continuing to focus on their strengths, skills and interests.
Pathways will always need to be there for people who move on from Housing First, to pop back in if they have any challenges in their life. Whilst not wanting to follow people about for the rest of their lives, we still need to show we are here if they need us, and that the door is always open.
Are we ready to talk about some of the upcoming challenges with Housing First as we scale up?
We are ready. Turning Point Scotland, because people matter.
Superb. So far, so good. I confess it is rather disconcerting because I can't see you, and I'm kind of used to seeing faces at these sort of things. So bear with me. We will hopefully manage to keep this going. So again, the history lesson all leads up to, you know, what has this all taught us? What is the learning? And I'd like to move on and touch on that now, and hopefully allow some of that to just shape our thinking in relation to where we go from here. So today I'm delighted to announce that we are going to release a paper, and it has the catchy title of After 10 Years of Housing First in Turning Point Scotland. But importantly, the paper contains 9 key messages of what we believe are the kind of the rich learning and the fundamentals to enable turning housing first to successfully be delivered. Everybody that's registered for this event will receive a copy of this by email tomorrow. It's also on the website as of now, and it will be shared on social media. So what I don't want to do is just rehearse the content of it. But I think it is important to maybe just highlight the key bullets. So as we've learned and developed our approach in Housing First over this last decade, we've come to understand the elements that really must be in place. And they are the things that we believe are the non-negotiables, the fundamentals that lie at the heart of success. And they include the fact that support is not time limited, the fact that stability of tenure is crucial to success. Access to a home should not be conditional, caseloads should remain low, and that Housing First should be for people experiencing multiple and enduring support needs. So no Housing First service operates in isolation, we know that, and all services are connected to a wider system of support structures. So the question, of course, is how that we can ensure that Housing First operates in that wider system in a way that doesn't limit it or cause it to fail to flourish. And that is a really crucial question. On that basis, Turning Point Scotland believes that the ideal Housing First service would involve the creation and implementation of a systems fidelity approach to development. Colleagues that have been writing and facilitating the monthly blogs in the Academy call for sustainable funding for Housing First. And within some of those arguments, there are some really powerful messages. And I wanted to share some of those with you. There's a quote in one of them that says that Housing First is so much more than giving someone a home. And I think most of us would recognise that. But if it's true, and this case goes on to argue the point, that if it's true that it is much more multifaceted than that, then is it right that the design, the delivery and the development of this falls simply to the homelessness system? And actually that's an important question that needs to be answered. TPS has contributed to the current ongoing Derek Feely review of adult social care in Scotland, and we've made that point firmly in our submission, calling for a fundamental shift in the way that adult social care systems operate in Scotland. For Housing First, we believe that this means seeing Housing First as a health and social care response to people's needs, embedding the approach in the centre of the health and social care partnerships, and not seen just as a silo issue. We've accepted that people with learning disabilities need support for the rest of their lives, but we've not yet accepted that individuals with multiple and enduring support needs may need the same. We've deliberately not talked so far about our tenancy sustainment rates, as although it is a good indicator, it only tells a small part of the story. Sustaining a tenancy doesn't mean that someone is happy or thriving. And similarly, depending on the methodology used to count sustainment, this can be adjusted to make it look higher or lower, depending on a series of other factors. But I think it's important maybe just to give you a snapshot of what some of these averaged percentage figures actually look like. Tenancy sustainment currently sits at 84%, which I think is a remarkable figure by any standard. Deaths sit at 8%, accounting for 24 individuals. And as I say, many of these relate to overdose or suspected overdose situations. Only 1% have been evicted, and that accounts for 2 people in 10 years. 3% have moved on to support accommodation in their tenancies. Finally, only 1% have received long-term prison sentences. And again, by any standard, these are really powerful statistics in terms of the actual experience of delivering Housing First services. In the early years of Housing First, we know that we held on to individuals for longer than we should have. We've become more skilled in these conversations, and we're having these often very sensitive but progressive discussions with people regularly. We see many endings in many different ways in Housing First. And some endings are amazingly positive, others not so much, and can end up in difficult circumstances. Our key messages paper goes into detail about some of what lies at the heart of all of that. And so I would recommend that you look at some of those if you've got an interest in understanding that a bit more deeper. 10 years ago, we knew that something needed to change in our approach to homelessness. And we were heartened to see that Housing First was scaled up and some of the questions that were being asked of the wider system. We have that same feeling again. We strongly believe that we need to change our siloed approach to the design, delivery and funding of services. And like 10 years ago, our board and I have agreed to use our own funds and work with partners and local authorities and government to design, deliver and do everything we can to remove the silos and to move Housing First forward. And if anybody wants to join us on that journey, anybody today or any colleagues beyond today's conference, then you're very welcome to join us on that journey. I truly hope that whether you're attending one session or all of the sessions today, there's going to be something in it for you, that you can take some of our experience, and again, you will have access to that paper so that you have more detail than I've been able to express this morning. And we can work collectively to drive the issues and driving Housing First forward for the next 10 years and beyond. I really think that there is scope to do that, and I sincerely hope that you will join us on that journey. So with that, I'd like to officially open the conference, and I hope you find today a valuable and worthwhile, if not enjoyable, experience. So thank you very much.